With the shooting of Jacob Blake, racial tensions crackle like wildfire. Back at home, Chief Craig tells protesters there will be no Seattle in Detroit. Chief James Craig is here. So is columnist Eugene Robinson, and he's bringing optimism. And meet Rona, a new campaign asking young people to get their pandemic act together. Today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020, and this is Flashpoint.
Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. August comes to a close after a week that blew in like a hurricane and actually included a massive hurricane. Hurricane Laura is gone, but leaves behind so much damage and also leaves us an unkind reminder that we're really just getting started with hurricane season, one that threatened to have two hurricanes churning around each other at the same time. We also moved from convention season now into campaign season. As I've said before, I'm not convinced there are that many undecided voters out there. It's really about the turnout for an election day that is now just 65 days away. That election will also remain fueled by the protests that were injected with even more anger and more energy with this week with the shooting of Jacob Blake. Last weekend saw the tensest moments we've seen in Detroit in some time as police moved in to scatter protesters trying to shut down Woodward Avenue downtown. Coming up, I'm going to talk with Police Chief James Craig about his firm comments on what he will and won't tolerate in Detroit. Also, part of my conversation with Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Eugene Robinson. After writing about race in America for decades, you'll find he is surprisingly optimistic right now. And a new push to get young adults to start being smarter when it comes to COVID-19. It is a packed morning today on Flashpoint. All right, last weekend in downtown Detroit, we saw one of the more dramatic collisions between Detroit police and the Detroit Will Breathe protesters. And in the aftermath, Detroit Police Chief James Craig said Detroiters are fed up with the group and their demands. And after breaking up the effort to shut down Woodward Avenue, Chief Craig went on to say, and rather firmly, Detroit would not be allowed to become Seattle. Very happy to have Chief James Craig back with us again on Flashpoint. Chief, I do want to talk about what happened in Kenosha. Before we get to that, though, you've now had a week to digest what happened last weekend. You've watched the video of your officers making pretty liberal use of their nightsticks, I would say, on the protesters last Saturday night downtown. Sum up for me how you feel it was handled.
Well, Devin, first, let me just thank you for coming on your show this Sunday. And I've had a chance to, digest, as you say, the events that took place. This is week 13, and we've had some great days, mostly peaceful protests. But I got to tell you, there were times that individuals embedded became violent. We know during this protest, individuals were armed with those green lasers that you've heard so much about in other cities.
Yep.
That impacted 3 federal agents. We were very concerned. First of all, as you indicated in your monologue, we weren't going to have a Seattle zone with lawlessness here in Detroit. That was not an option. But that said, we were patient. We talked for about an hour, repeated warnings that you would be arrested. They said, we're not going anywhere. They wanted to be arrested, and they made demands. And the demand was they wanted federal agents to leave the city of Detroit. Again, still showing tremendous patience. And then when we began to effect arrests, there was resistance. You can see some of the videos where some of the protesters are pulling on our officers to free their comrades. And so 44 arrests total throughout this ordeal. We have several investigations that we're looking at to determine whether or not the officers' actions were appropriate. But given the amount of resistance that we saw then, and we've seen throughout the 13 weeks periodically, certainly my hat goes off to the men and women of the Detroit Police Department who have just done a phenomenal job over these past weeks.
The appearance of federal officers has certainly added a new wrinkle for the protesters and a new frustration for them. Has that been a presence, to your way of thinking, that has been helpful for the city, or has the net been one that's been problematic because it's given the protesters something else to be angry about?
Absolutely not problematic, Devin. Let me just say this. It's not about federal agents. It's not about this police department. it is something much deeper than that. Okay, even if the federal agents, what we saw in Portland is a great example. So they pulled the federal agents back and the rioting continued. It continued. So it's not about federal agents. The federal agents are here in Detroit to do one thing and one thing only, to work with this department, which we've worked with federal agents now for 26 years, Devin. 26 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's with the sole purpose of reducing violence. It's no secret that there's been an increase of violence, not just here in Detroit, but around the country and most of the major cities. So this is an enhancement to what we already agreed to late December. And so this is the way the narrative is constantly twisted. Even when we engage the protesters when there is violence, they deny there was any violence. They always say that it's the police that incite the violence. When you start pointing lasers at our helicopter, lasers at some of the officers on the ground, that's very serious. Not to mention the fact that I was also told, not at the time that I briefed out on this, that there was indications of projectiles being thrown.
Yeah. I don't know if you feel comfortable sort of summing up what you've seen of the Jacob Blake case, but every time we feel that maybe we're reaching a moment where, I don't want to say that everybody can relax, because that's certainly not going to happen, but a moment of relative calm, it's broken up by yet another example of exactly what these protests are about. Do you feel okay summing up what you've seen in Kenosha, Wisconsin?
Well, a couple of things I saw, and I'm oftentimes, I try not to be critical of another police agency and their handling of this. Certainly, Kenosha has probably not had to handle this, but a couple of things that stood out for me. As you saw how we handled several officer-involved shootings, you must get out in front of it very quickly, because if you don't, there will be another narrative with individuals who have another agenda will put out. We saw it here in Detroit. And so it took days before there was a written statement put out, I believe, by the department. But the chief executive should have got up, stood before a camera, and at least provided the community with some sense of what took place. That didn't happen. And when I look at that situation, you know, Devin, I can't definitively tell you what happened. I can tell you what I saw on the one video. And certainly when you look at the video, it's absolutely troubling. Yeah. But there may be more. There's some conversation surrounding that maybe he was going for a knife. There was conversation that prior to the shooting, that officers used their tasers. And why did they? But we just don't know all the facts.
There's still a lot to get to. Chief, I only got about 30 seconds left, but I want to let you address one more thing. And we just heard a lot of this past at the conventions. You're going to hear a lot more of this in the next 2 months about the mayhem that exists in democratically run cities. Do you want to take a shot at that? How would you answer that criticism? Well,
you know, I've been asked that question, and we don't have an issue here. This police chief and our mayor, we're in lockstep. He's not supportive of the increase in violence. He never has been. And so we're working together very effectively. And that's what you don't see in some of these other cities. I mean, when you have a mayor of another city, unnamed city that is, and say Summer of Love, and then they cause the officers to retreat from their police station, and then there's a violent crime that takes place, 2 murders to be exact, and the police are not allowed to go in, that is not a Summer of Love. That's a disaster.
Not been. Chief, I got to get to a break. I so appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being back with us again on Flashpoint. Look forward to having you back again real soon. We'll take a quick break. Back with more. Eugene Robinson next on Flashpoint.
It's game day live here at Bill and Julie's house, a fan favorite venue ever since they got gig speed internet. Xfinity gives them the ultimate home field advantage. It's their 12th man.
Hey, Amy, you want to grab a seat?
Julie. We're live.
It's game on with gig speed internet from Xfinity.
Start him, sit him, trade him.
Simple, easy, awesome. Xfinity delivers gig speeds to more homes than anyone. Learn more or get started with Xfinity internet for $25 a month for 12 months. Click, call, or visit a store today.
We're here for it all. Day 1 to year 100. The times you remember and things you'd rather leave behind. Standing by for the late nights the midday surprises, and everything in between. We're here for it all, and always will be. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Confidence comes with every card.
I love you too. Bye-bye. That was Jerry. Emma just said her first word.
Oh.
Jerry says hello and they'll be over soon.
Who's Jerry? Is he a friend of yours?
No. This Jerry. Our Jerry. And this is his wife and their little girl.
On the next Live in the D, how this local woman dramatically changed her life, plus the one step that can transform the look of your home. Monday at 10 a.m. on Local 4.
Welcome back. Certainly, given the turmoil in the streets of America 2020, you may be feeling quite despondent or resigned about the state of race relations in America. Well, consider then the thoughts of a man who's been writing about race in the United States for decades as a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post. Recently, Eugene Robinson was a speaker for the Detroit Regional Chamber's virtual version of the Mackinac Policy Conference, and he voiced a fair amount of optimism because of the diversity of voices he's seeing for the first time. And I was happy to get to ask him about it after his remarks.
I do believe this time is different. I believe we have arrived at someplace new. I think, welcome to the new America. And from this point, it's really up to all of us, not thinking of ourselves as a society, thinking of ourselves as individuals. It's up to every one of us, all 330 million of us, to decide what the next step is and the step after that. To decide what steps we can take in our personal lives, in our own offices, in our own families, what we can do to make it better. It's up to all of us to shape the future. And it's an exciting project, an exciting prospect for the next years and decades. And let's get to it. We're someplace new. We've never been here before. Let's make it a better place.
Eugene, I want to start with the fact that you kind of you admitted you're an optimist, and I wonder how many times before you have felt like we were at the doorstep of real progress and it just didn't happen. We think of so many images that we've seen that might have ignited or we hoped would ignite real change, whether it was Rodney King, Eric Garner, too many to mention. But I wonder how many times you felt that optimism before, and if you've been able to discern why this optimism is that different to you.
Well, look, I will date myself, but after the 60s, all the changes, right? Because I grew up in South Carolina when the struggle was on to pass the landmark legislation, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act. So I remember Jim Crow segregation. I remember in Orangeburg, South Carolina, where there were black schools, there were white schools, and then there were not. Eventually, it took a while and it took struggle, but there were not. And there was a moment, the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, when the civil rights legislation was really taking hold, and affirmative action programs were beginning to sort of level the playing field for African Americans. And certainly for me, and I think for a lot of people, that was a time of great optimism. It's different now because the legal battles have basically been won, right? I mean, racial discrimination is basically outlawed, but certainly not eliminated. It's a different kind of struggle. It's really against racism. It's against systems and attitudes and practices that are not always dealt with by the legislation. Now, there's been some legislative setbacks. I mean, a lot of the Voting Rights Act, for example, was invalidated by the Supreme Court, and I think that's, the efforts to fix that in Congress are very important. But I can't recall a time between then and now where I have felt that we might be taking a giant step toward a fairer and more just nation. And really the big reason for me is the diversity of the Americans who have been involved in this outpouring. The fact that I went down to the protests in Washington and I just saw kinds of crowds that I had never seen before at a social justice protest. And I didn't see them after Rodney King. I didn't see them after Eric Garner, after those high-profile incidents. Something about this time, and maybe it's because it's a time of such disruption with the pandemic, with the economic crisis. Maybe people were more open to seeing the world in a different light right now than they are normally. But it's been a long time since I've had this kind of optimism about a real step forward.
One of the things that I wonder is whether all of this would have happened and fomented had it not been for coronavirus. We had an intense pressure that the pandemic has put on communities of color, but we also had a lot of people staying at home, out of work. It gave people a lot of time to hit the streets.
It sure did.
Between the time and the anger that they were already feeling and the frustration over the pandemic, that all kind of added into the kettle, didn't it?
Oh, it certainly did. People, yes, had a lot of time on their hands, had a lot of frustration and anger that came from the pandemic and the economic crisis, and also I just think having seen the whole society sort of upended by the disease and the economic crisis, we're open to the possibility of big change, I think, perhaps in a way that normally people are not. Normally people are, they get up, they go to work, they get home, they're, worry about their families, they worry about their routines. Nobody has a routine anymore. Routines are out the window. And so maybe that did create a certain sort of receptiveness to new messages and new ideas.
If you'd like to see all of Eugene's remarks and our Q&A, we've put that link at clickondetroit.com on our Flashpoint page. Back with more in just a minute. We're going to meet Rona when we come back.
The sun and high heat can fry your car's paint job. But Maaco can make it look like it never happened. Act now with our paint sales starting at $4.99. Uh-oh, better get Maaco.
Hey, how does Apartments.com have the most listings? Well, it's because we're willing to scout them out no matter how far away. Kevin, anything to report?
Nothing.
Gee, that's interesting. Exactly like the last 983 days.
Hey, can I come home?
Kevin. What a dedicated intern. He's just one of the reasons why more people find their place at Apartments.com than any other website.
Sir, we have an incoming call.
Send it to voicemail.
Done.
Apartments.com, the most popular place to find a place.
You're all set to retire. You have your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial to your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today. Your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today. Your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today. Your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today. Your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today.
The sun and
having a survivability crisis here that they may not be able to recover from.
You know, Devin, I don't think I had a no from any of the businesses that I asked. Now, they were larger businesses because I think they're more capable of giving. But the generosity during a tough time was really gratifying. But you are right that this has been toughest on small business, and particularly on the small businesses that aren't yet open, and they exist. The state had hoped that those businesses could reopen when our cases dropped so low in June, but then they ran back up. I know the state is looking at them again, and we need to do that, but it clearly has been hardest there.
Well, I know you can be loath to be political sometimes, but I am curious if you could characterize for me how you feel like the governor has handled this with respect to businesses, because some people have seen some real inconsistencies in the primacy of some businesses, for instance, casinos, over others, gyms.
Well, I, as you know, have been leading a collection of healthcare leaders and public health leaders and business leaders and so forth. And I can just say that the attitude in that group has not been political. It's not been about criticism. It's all about realizing that this is a really difficult, complex situation for our state and for our governor. So we've really just been focused on trying to give her the best insight and advice that we can. Nobody will work their way through something like this without mistakes, but that's been the feel of the group I've been working with.
And you feel you've been listened to? Because some have criticized the governor for operating, some feel like, in a bubble.
No, we have been listened to. We had, especially through the heart of it, very regular conversations, and we saw her listen.
All right. Jerry Anderson, good to talk to you again. Thanks for being back on Flashpoint, and hopefully we'll see you in person again real soon.
I hope so, too. Glad to be here.
All right, before we go, quick reminder, be with us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. here on Local 4, your exclusive home for this year's exclusively televised fireworks. We'll see you then. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint.